Before Brian Lilley talks about mainstream news and defunding the CBC, please fund this show because we aren't the CBC and Trudeau doesn't pay for us. Now, CBC always says it has quality broadcasting, has to be a public broadcaster, high expenses, low ratings, and they produce shows like Family Feud. Brian Lilley, is that Canadian culture? Do we need someone to spend billions to produce Family Feud?
I miss the old days when Richard Dawson from Hogan's Heroes was on Family Feud, but I'm
That's a
dating
real
myself.
Family Feud in the States.
I'm dating myself. Look, CBC never had to exist. You know, Hockey Night in Canada did not start on CBC. It started on what is now called News Talk 1010, CFRB in Toronto. All the big artists that CBC had in the early days were developed by private broadcasters that existed before a pair of communists convinced R.J. Bennett, the Conservative Prime Minister, to start CBC. And we didn't need them. We didn't need them then. We don't need them now. So, you know, look, Pierre Poilievre is only promising to defund English CBC.
Because you know, Radio Canada, French CBC is a completely different kettle of fish.
Well,
it's popular and serves a purpose.
They are. I mean, my old boss, Pierre-Carl Pelledeau, would like them to go away because then he would own the whole province. But, you know,
but they don't spend also the money that English Canada, and then we have, you know, the president saying we bind Canada together.
They don't, and
only the Toronto Annex.
Look, they speak to deepest, darkest annex. I get more views on my Toronto Sun YouTube page than CBC does on a lot of issues. And I'm sorry, they're the national state broadcaster. They've got all this money. They've got all this stuff. Do they do some good work? Yeah, but
now and then.
Their news is biased. Their news is not reflective of Canada. It hasn't been for years. You can find an old clip of Doug Fisher. You remember Doug Fisher?
Oh, absolutely.
Elected as a CCF MP.
Fort William.
Up in Thunder Bay, and he was also a Telegram and Toronto Sun columnist for years. And in the early 60s, he's complaining about the metropolitanism of CBC, that they only speak to Toronto and Montreal and Ottawa. And that's all they still do. Maybe a little bit to Vancouver. They don't care about the rest of the country. Radio might be different, but that's CBC television. That's why we don't need them. That's why they need to go.
So when Pierre Poilievre says, make me Prime Minister, and one of the things I'm going to do is defund English CBC, you think that's popular in Canada?
It is the biggest cheer that he gets in pretty much every rally across the country. So, yeah, I don't think he's going to see a big pushback against this. Maybe he would have if this was 20, 30 years ago. It's not now. And the idea that CBC's, it's the most popular newscast, it hasn't been in decades. They're the third horse in a three-horse race, and their numbers are fading.
Well, somebody from CBC said, we wish on some shows we had your numbers, LeDrew. Hard to believe. Because of you, Brian Lilley. Thanks very much. 3 minutes. This show provides independent analysis of the issues. We are not paid by the government. And as I am finding, so much business in Canada relies upon various governments that they don't want to sponsor or advertise on a show which may become controversial, which talks about liberty, freedoms, sometimes criticizes government. I've had guests on that support the government. But people are saying, you know what? We don't want to bite the hand that feeds us, i.e. government, which is why I hope you'll subscribe and contribute to keep this show on the air.